Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
That was freaking awesome. I'm telling you. I mean,
What's that?
The banter back and forth before we go to music.
We have always said that we should have a hot mic.
I know, a hot
in the
mic
parking
on,
lot.
because we're like, all right, well, what are we doing? I don't know. What do we do? Okay, what
Well,
are we
no,
talking
I just started by saying, I said, I think my banter at the beginning of the show is becoming weak.
Are you on decaf?
No.
All right. Well, then maybe that's the problem. Maybe you need to go a little espresso. Decaf with
Dude,
espresso.
I'm
Try
literally
that.
like 60 ounces of coffee in me right now. So I don't know. Hey, it was a personal observation. You know,
Well, I think
you haven't yelled at me yet, so it can't be that weak.
Well, you know when I'll yell at you, right?
What, when I don't show up?
No, when you take a drink
Oh yeah, I'm not doing that.
today.
I'm not doing that today.
All right.
I'm not doing it tomorrow either.
You think your odds are pretty good?
I think they're 100%.
Okay. Why?
You know, speaking of
Yeah.
which, I'm actually, I have the opportunity to share kind of a little bit of my story tomorrow, and I'm going to focus on. In fact, we could almost do a whole episode on this. In fact, we probably should. But I saw this and it just clicked. I was wondering what I was going to share, and it says, so I found something on social media, right? And it says, it's not what I know in recovery that keeps me sober. It's what I do that keeps me sober.
Oh, that's powerful.
And so, as you know, I've listed my 22, 23, it's now up to 25 things
25 things
that I do a day, a week, a month to stay sober. And this podcast
is one of them.
is one of them. So it's great to be here. It's great to be in the coffee
Hey,
shop.
guess what?
It's
I'm
great
super
to connect with
excited
our
today.
listeners.
Connect.
What's that?
You want to connect with the listener?
Yeah, let's connect with the listener.
I brought one to the coffee shop.
Table for three.
I know, right?
I love it.
Usually I just bring my notepad and my headset, but
Don't
good
mention
morning,
that
Claudia.
ChatGPT thing.
Good morning, guys.
Yeah,
Claudia.
Claudia at the coffee shop with
Cheers,
us today.
cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. So Claudia and I attend meetings together locally, and she cracks me up because she cracks herself up, right? So, like somebody will be, like let me give you an example. If like right now in the coffee shop, if I were to say, well, they found a tumor in my brain, Claudia would probably giggle a little bit, right? Because she'd find some kind of humor in that.
It's sick humor, Mike.
I know, I love it. I love it. But it's so funny. We'll be like we'll be at a somber point in a meeting, and she'll just look at me, and I just have to look away because I know if I continue to look at her, I'm going to laugh. And I know you have that relationship with your sponsor where the two of you can't even sit together. It's like illegal to have you sitting together.
That's awesome.
Levity. Gotta
Yeah.
have levity.
I've heard
Gotta
the
have
giggles.
levity.
In
Yeah.
fact, I was at a meeting a week ago or so, and I heard those giggles, and I'm like, that's awesome.
I know, right?
That's like almost, well, not almost, that's joy.
Yeah, right.
We're
right.
not a glum lot.
We are not a glum lot.
For sure.
Not anymore.
Yeah, so
Maybe the first week.
So
True.
It's interesting. We're going to have Claudia, and I thought to myself, I go to a lot of meetings, and I would say that 80 to 90% of the population in my rooms, probably 90%, is male.
True.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, where have Claudia today? So I did a little research.
Okay.
And I found that the most current statistic available says that there are 38%, AA population, 38% women. But then it went on, like I went to alcoholic.org. It said it's been long recognized that women have specific issues addressed in recovery disorder and has been very open to promoting gender-specific AA meetings. So what I think I uncovered is you guys like have your own meetings out there.
Yeah.
And
You guys don't have do you have men's
Not
meetings all
really,
night?
no.
Maybe
I
if it was
mean,
private.
yeah, I
at
mean,
some
I
No,
guess
they
point.
have men's
I guess
meetings
there
out there.
are,
I don't
yeah.
go to them.
I don't either.
Because they're not that, they don't have a ton of them.
I have learned so much from my female counterparts in sobriety. I just have learned so much. Some of my heroes in my early days when I was like really hanging on for dear life and trying to figure this whole thing out, the words of wisdom guided me through some really, I lost 9 people in my first year of sobriety, 9 deaths
Wow.
close to me. And And plus other things like working and
Yeah,
life, right?
Yeah.
And but yeah, and
That's why I
Claudia,
think
you've
it's
been
such a-
inspirational to me. So.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Mikey. And you too. You know, there's certain people in this program. And by the way, guys, what an honor to be with you on my 3-year sober anniversary
Wait,
today.
man,
ding, ding.
Today.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Is that today?
Yeah.
Oh, my
that is
gosh.
fantastic. Did you
So-
get a coin for that?
I hope so at some point.
Yeah, that's
Although my
fantastic.
sponsor's on a cruise.
Wow. Did she get your permission?
She did.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Hey, so 3 years. That is
3 years.
unbelievable. Did you ever
Yeah.
think it was possible?
No.
No.
If someone were to ask me 3 years ago today that I would be asked to do a podcast, what an honor. And that right there is a miracle in itself, you know?
Wow.
And you too, Mikey. You know, and it is so. I think that's part of it that I've come to realize. You know, it is men stick with men, women stick
Right.
with women. But we're able to gain access of the other side,
Right.
you know, and I think that's such a great thing. Some of you included, Glenn, you were so integral in my early sobriety because, again, I came in COVID. So I was able to be on a Zoom meeting and hear men and women. You know, and I did go to some early, thank goodness, I was able to go to some women's meetings. And ironically, that's where I met my sponsor.
Yeah.
And we did connect through humor.
Yeah.
But, you know, I find so much, you know, that's what I come away with at 3 years. And I will say the second year of sobriety was probably more challenging than the either previous years, you know, solely because I think it made a turning point, you know, as we work this program. For me personally, you know, I think for women, there's a lot of challenges. Not that men don't have those same challenges, but in regards to, you know, you're challenged with giving up the alcohol, and that in itself is difficult. But with that, sometimes I see more so, just from my personal experience, obviously, because I'm a woman and I speak to more women than men about that. But we really do, if we're fighting the obsession of the alcohol, and for me, gratefully, that was lifted immediately upon coming in. But to that, you know, I really have had to navigate the last 3 years of dealing with, you know, relationships, primarily, you know, our spouses,
Sure.
our boyfriends.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say that, you know, there's such a strong connectivity to the emotional sobriety. And I've had a couple women, you know, that I've sponsored. And a big part of it is, you know, you have enough on your plate trying to fight alcoholism itself and the actual drink. But to that, the emotional aspects of why some of the reasons we did drink.
Right, sure.
And navigating that. And I see that so often with
Oh, that's
women.
such a great point.
Yeah.
Well, I see it with men, but you're right. And again, I think the big differentiator for men and women is, you know, we have to be trained to put the seat back down. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, like, why don't we train women to put the seat up when they're done using it? I don't understand.
Because we bring us all into the world, Michael.
Oh, okay, and
There
you
you
can
go,
bring
Mikey.
me out. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I mean, there's so much stuff that I had to process. Look, I didn't know if my wife was going to like Sober Mike, right? I mean, I never gave her a chance to know Sober Mike. So
Sure.
how is now all of a sudden I've got a bounce in my step. I've got clarity and I've got purpose and I've got a drive to do this. I don't even know that she's going to like me. I re-proposed to my wife in sobriety because she had lost her engagement ring years ago, and I decided to smuggle away some dollars, and I got her a duplicate ring.
Oh, nice.
But I got to tell you something. Seriously,
Yeah.
I was concerned what she would say. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Gratefully, she said yes.
That's
but,
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. But you know what? Those challenges don't always work out for
No,
others.
they don't.
You know?
No, they don't.
And as someone
Oh,
who has
great point.
sponsored women and myself personally, you know, that's a very hard road to navigate.
Absolutely.
And, you know, a lot of women, you know, I'm definitely not anti get rid of the man.
Right.
But to the extent you do have to focus, this is a selfish program. And I think for women, it's just inbred in us to constantly, you know, give it away to our families, to our children, to our husbands. So it's real hard. And, you know, when you're trying to fight stuff that's not good for you and that codependency, but real
Sure.
toxic behaviors that
Yeah, sure.
add to that alcoholism, you know, it's real hard to fight both those things. So that's been a real challenge for me. And sometimes I feel like, you know, what's your niche? And when I came into here, I think that's really it, because that reoccurring theme kept coming to, you know, me with women and dealing with that's a tough battle when
So
you're trying to do.
am I hearing you right? I mean, you've got your sobriety you're focused on,
Yeah.
but yet you have these external relationships that are,
And-
it's tough to keep focus.
And and here's the thing too. I think it comes back to when we stop drinking by nature, that alcoholism, we want a distraction, and our alcoholic behavior just goes into relationships. And, I have a young girl right now, young, I say she's not a teenager, but I see so much of myself in her. And she's tried to get sober since 2020. And, some people they have it. And as someone who wants to sponsor, and she's reached out to me to do so, she's fighting out this other bullshit with men that are, she can't see it, because she's broken. And such a beautiful, smart woman, and for me, that's it, is that as I'm still at 3 years sobriety today, I still struggle with those things. But as I'm telling these girls, what I see, you don't need someone to talk to you that way. That's toxic behavior. Right now, focus on you. That's, for me, that's my higher power working through me, because that's the same stuff. I've had moments where I've stopped mid-sentence with women and I'm like, holy shit. Do you hear yourself, Claude?
Right.
Because I'm
funny?
still, and that's how it works,
Yeah.
So that's something that I think that I can offer. And, and by that too, I've reached I haven't mastered it. I'm still struggling to navigate that personally. And that's how it works, because it shows me too. I have to listen to what I'm saying to a sponsee, how to get sober. So, it's challenging on a whole, but, amidst all of it, to have that strength as a woman, that clarity, that's what I want them to hold on for.
That's awesome.
Because they start to see it, that behavior is not good for them, along with the alcohol.
Yeah, so I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is going to be kind of more of a research question for me. So, I'm involved, and Mikey's involved with a sober living community in Chicago.
Okay.
Right. Probably up to 60 beds at one point. I don't know the exact number today, but they used to have a women's program. They used to have. So this is sober living, and it's not like the normal sober living where you just go for 3 weeks and
It's not a house, it's a home.
Yeah, I mean it's a long-term sober
Okay.
living. The average length of stay is almost 12 months.
Okay.
Most other sober livings, I don't know if you have experience in that, is 3 weeks, right? It's just it's a step down place coming from rehab. You go to sober living, and then you go back to your environment.
Right.
But this is a commitment, right? And so they used to have a women's program, right? They used to have a women's house for 8 women.
Okay.
And as I was starting to, goes back 5 years, as I was starting to get to know sober living and the right way to do it, and what works and what compared to what doesn't work, and as I was working with them, what I understood is that it's really totally different for men, and the stigma and reality of going into sober living and unplugging from your world and focusing on yourself. And it almost seems like women didn't have that, because some were mothers, and it just didn't like they had that luxury to be able to do that. So as you work with women, I mean, is sober living ever an option, or is that just off the table?
That's it. I think for the majority of women, and I've had sponsees tell me, and I get that, because the reason I got sober were my 2 beautiful daughters. And I was fortunate to get sober during COVID, so the world shut down. And for me, that was...
You got to focus.
That was the greatest blessing. I jumped in. So not every woman has that luxury. And I do think as a mom, as a wife, that is hard to shut down and do so. And women that can do it, there's probably so much guilt with that. I know still women, I can't make that meeting. My son has this. And that is something that was really challenging for me in the beginning. And, when you also have a partner, in a home where, you've worked a certain way and mom was always there, it's hard for everyone to adjust to that, and so hard to not. I still feel guilty. But I know for me, and really instilling that in other women, if mama's not good, no one's good.
If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah, and you're such a better person
No,
for it. And thank
I
goodness.
really like that insight.
Yeah, my kids definitely get that. They really 100% behind me, because they know
Right.
that it makes me better. And I just want that for other women, you know. It's real hard to see a woman struggling because I've been there.
You have
know?
such a passion for the newcomer, for that one coming in.
Yeah.
And again, you got 3 years. And
which is nothing in comparison to some, you know,
But-
but
no.
it's such a beautiful journey. It really is.
But it's 3 years to somebody with 3 days. That's just like hope. It's just hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never used the word only. I mean, I couldn't go 20 minutes, you know. So
Right.
when I went to 3 days, oh my God, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. When I went, 3 months, oh my God, I just, and now and time doesn't really matter to me anymore. I don't really feel like celebrating anniversaries.
Yeah, that is funny
just
how that
don't-
goes too, right? In the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm a chip getter. I'm a goal getter.
Yeah,
I like
right.
an end
Well, for
result.
me, it was all ego.
Sure, yeah.
For me,
Sure.
and this is I think I've told this before. The first time I was 12 months sober, not this time, but the first time I was 12 months sober.
You're racking them up.
Well, at 13 months, I have a belt of 30-day coins. I only have a
It's going to
handful of
Vegas.
12 months. Yeah, but I literally at 12 months, and I cringe today because this is not me today. I literally called up because I've been in so many programs. I mean, I would call up and I'd say, "Hey, Jim, do you remember me, Glenn? Because I, really struggled in it." And he goes, "Oh yeah, Glenn, how are you?" I said, "Man, I'm doing great. I got 12 months sober. Hey, I just wanted to know I'm available to come speak to your program or to work with any, I mean, oh my God. And I didn't really get any hang-ups, but I got some people that are like, dude, you're just counting your days to your next drink. And they were right.
Right.
It was just crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen that and it's almost like the guys leaving the toilet seat up. I mean, there's still guys I know in my life today leave the toilet seat up, right? It's habit. But I think it's different for women. And I started really opening my eyes with that sober living stuff, and it's like, no, it's it's not expected that but guys can unplug easier than women can, right?
Yeah.
But I like what you
Because
said.
they have women
Yeah. Oh,
to come up behind them.
You
and
know what?
just
And
saw
to
it.
that, I do frequent in my home group a men's meeting on Sunday, which it is primarily men.
Right.
Which that in itself has challenges with young girls. I remember my sponsor telling me, don't let that's probably her opening line to me, and don't let some guy come up to you and try and 13-step you.
right.
I
Well,
had
there are
no
guys
idea.
that do that. There are guys that
And I
know.
was so naive. I
Yeah.
had no idea. I really thought there was a 13th step.
Right.
Well, there is for some.
There is, but it's not in the book.
But there's, I mean, there are guys I know, and I almost am defense at this point, right? Because I see what's going on in the rooms, and I know who loves, I mean, there's a guy who won't say anything to anybody until a cute girl comes in, who's early sobriety, and now all of a sudden he's the savant sober whisperer.
Yeah, right.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, lay off. Come on. 'Cause-
And to that, back to what I'm saying about women and that codependency and that emotional sobriety, we just sometimes, I've seen that so many times in the rooms, it goes from the alcohol, okay, I stopped drinking, and now it's still going to those behaviors where a man or sex or, whatever that's going to fill that void,
Right.
that's where they go to. And, sick people attract sick people.
Yeah, sure.
And just do that, not everyone is really working a program that shows up in that room, So then you become like Mama Bear because you can, for me, I feel like I can spot that pretty easily.
Right,
So,
right.
But
I think
was
everybody
still,
can spot it.
well, not always, you
No.
know.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
good news is if you can get past that hurdle,
Yeah.
then you carry yourself working the program, right?
You
So-
do, and and I know there's probably women to that say, "Oh, she goes to that meeting," but I get so much from
Sure.
the men in that program
Right.
because they give me hope. And
Right.
I remember in early sobriety saying to my husband, "God, I wish sometimes that you were alcoholic," and he just looked at me like I was crazy because why would you wish that
Right.
affliction upon someone?
Right.
But the men in those rooms, they're like brothers,
Right, sure.
and show me such a beautiful way because men by nature too are not taught to be emotional.
Right.
And share. And I just, that's the hope that I have for myself as well.
Right,
You know,
sure.
it's real hard for people to work on, each other and work a program and come to, it's change. It really has. And that's been a big part of my recovery, navigating that without the alcohol.
Navigating that change.
Yeah.
right.
And you're going to grow and you're going to continue to grow. And if someone grows with you, that's difficult because they don't have a program and you have to allow grace for that as well.
And don't you think that on that topic, this program works for anybody who's got any hurt habit or hang up.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just a better way to live.
Sure.
If you live and breathe those 164 pages.
Yeah, so we have Mikey and I belong to a men's group, and it's more spiritually focused. Although there's
More than half of the guys.
half the
have
guys
an
are
background.
AA.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's spiritually focused, right? And we have commented several times, and I was starting to do it, and then I didn't. I'm sure why I didn't, but we always say that anybody in this world would benefit from the 12-step program.
Right.
Absolutely.
Anybody.
Claudia, I have a question, and it's
Sure.
a selfish question. I've got somebody who is new to the program, and a young lady, and they confided to me that, it seems to them that it's speaking of not a language they can understand because it was written in 1934. So words like fellows and he was gay and, meaning happy. And she doesn't like the writing. She doesn't like the fact that she goes into a room and it's me, not me, but 50, 60-year-old men.
Yeah.
How did you, because you had to fight that hurdle, did you just quickly plug into, what's your suggestion for them? Because it is so relevant today. You just have to look past the word fellows and gay.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Well, it is. It's written archaic, and you can laugh and see this. You read those, and a lot of women, again, I don't know why. I've always been like a guy's girl. I think because I had an older brother.
Were you a tomboy?
Maybe when I was younger, but I'm okay and I'm comfortable in that, But it is hard. You have to connect with someone. And that's where I think sometimes, I feel like I'm helpful in that arena, because women especially, they want to feel connected, Some of those young girls, how do they plug in, even to older women in the women's meetings,
yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of them just want to talk about, oh, my husband didn't go get the dry cleaning. And you want to focus on the sobriety. And at the end of the day, when you read those, that's working it with a sponsor who can, and that's what I do. I bring some levity to it and put it in perspective with today. But it is, I think if you have that moment of clarity, and that's really what I stress to a lot of the newcomers. And I do have women that, they don't want to. That's a big hurdle. It's a big challenge, and for me personally, that's been harder than the alcohol.
Right.
And detaching and caring about ourselves. But sober, I can be sober from alcohol, but to be emotionally sober, that is the gift at 3 years sober.
Right.
That's what stops me from ever picking up that drink because I have that clarity. And to walk with confidence and start believing in yourself, and I see that time and again.
How are you, I'm sorry, Glenn, how are you pursuing emotional sobriety? Is there resources that you're kind of...
I was blessed in the program, and that's the other thing, is that I reached out to, it wasn't a man or a woman, and yes, men stick with men, I get that, but I will tell you, because of Zoom and the people, my sponsor, I did cherry pick, even Glenn, I remember in early sobriety, a story he shared, he gave me hope, and I tell that to women, yes, there's certain things because we don't want any 13-step going on, but you can glean information from each and every one, and that's what I do. And there's even times where I've had to step back from my sponsor, because that's growth, and saying, hey, this is how it works for me, So, I think it's definitely... I choose my sponsor. I was able to get a therapist who is also in A, and she's been a gift to me, and it's not just honing in on one person. That's it. Building your army of women and sometimes men to that, and getting that knowledge because you get that other side. So it's a great program, and I'm so happy that I'm part of it.
Yeah, I have a couple, sober sisters. I mean, in my phone, I got 50 guys' phone numbers, and I have 2 girls' phone numbers.
Yeah.
But I also know where it's all on today. And my wife knows the 2.
Sure.
And, it's just too easy to cross lines. It's too easy to text back and forth and start telling jokes. And then it's too easy to, start sharing stories. And then all of a sudden, hey, let's have coffee. And, for me, it's just too easy. So I just don't do it.
Yeah.
Mikey, to go back in that situation that you said, talking about, it uses the word fellows. And for me, as I look at my journey, it's easy for me to judge. It was easy for me to judge my way out of AA. And I did it so many times. It's like, don't like that person, I'm not going to go to that meeting anymore.
Don't like that word.
I don't like those words. You know, I don't agree with that. And that's why these people that come into the room and they change the words of AA, I don't believe in that. Because at that point, my experience is I'm creating my own program. And I tried that for years, and it doesn't work. When I say, well, it shouldn't say that, it should say this, all I am hearing is ego in my brain rattling around that I know better than this book that has gotten millions of people sober, that there is a solution. So for me, I had to get to the point, and change is hard.
Sure.
I had to get to the point where I surrendered. And I said, you know what? I am going to do everything this book tells me to do, period, end of sentence, whether I like it, whether I agree with it. And what I have found over time, it's almost like a fire alarm. What I found over time is when I'm going sideways over what I'm reading in that book, the problem is not the words in that book.
Absolutely.
The problem is with me.
Love it.
When I go to a meeting and I start going sideways because of somebody in that meeting,
Yep.
most of the time, okay, all the time, it's not them, it's the problem is with me. And so many times people early on, they don't surrender fully. And they're like, well, I'm not going to go to that meeting because of this. And I don't want and Mikey, we've had so many programs on here that's create your own sobriety.
Sure.
It just doesn't work. I've tried to do that so many times.
Didn't work for me.
And it's like, oh, I'll just drink beer. I mean, I'm telling you what, the first night I drank 2 beers, man, I thought I was Superman. Next night I'm drinking Handle again. I mean, what works for me is total surrender. So I don't care if it says fellows. I don't care if it says gay. I'm smart enough, intelligent enough to be able to adjust to that and say, hey, that's then, this is now. They might use different words, but it's still the same meaning. It's still the same message.
Yeah.
So I'm a little not.
No, I love it.
I'm not as juiced up as California Sober.
Oh, boy.
But
I've heard the stories about that.
yeah, but I'm pretty focused that it takes surrender, and when you get in there and you start judging your way out of it,
Yeah, I love that.
you're going to judge your way
Sure.
into your next drink.
Sure.
Well, and I think too is, unfortunately for me, I was so broken that I was, I didn't fight anything. I was completely open and teachable to any
Surrender.
way, correct, of, the way that I was living.
Well,
But
because you had hit the point of pain, you wanted the new
a new way to live.
Yes.
I didn't have that, and this program has given me such a beautiful, emotional sobriety. And I'm sorry, but those two are linked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, I don't think people, some are, and again, you can argue that point. That's a whole other conversation as to whether we're born with it, anxious,
I know, right.
trauma adds to it.
Does it
But
really matter?
it doesn't, right?
No,
At the end
I
of the
spent
day.
years and so much money with PhDs
Trying to
and got
figure it
nowhere.
out.
Exactly.
This is what it is.
But just, if you can get out of self and really listen. And those 12 steps, for me, that's where it's at. Those 12 steps in all my affairs.
Right.
And that is, again, as it's said time and again, simple program, but, you got to put in the work. It doesn't magically. And that's the thing is I see a lot of women, I stopped drinking for 18 months. Yeah, but then when we sit down, I'm listening to this, and this, and this. You're not, that's worse.
Yeah,
You're
right.
better off drinking.
I trust me, I see that scenario play out all the time, and it breaks my heart.
Me too.
Because it doesn't need to be that way. If, like you said, if you just invest your time
Yeah.
and your energy in learning and growing.
And it is a process, because even in two years of sobriety, I can remember having some changes happen that, were not happy, joyous, and free.
Right, sure.
In regards to a job. And that's when I did have that flicker of a moment. Not that I ever wanted to pick up a
Right,
drink,
right.
but that feeling I said openly to my girls, God, what's it all about? Like, I'm really working hard, and yet this happened,
Yeah,
right?
right, sure.
And so we're never cured, and we're always learning. And I remember thinking, what if it's all for naught?
Yeah.
But instead of detaching from the meetings, and that was my initial,
Sure,
you
knee-jerk,
get
sure.
you get a
Yeah.
blow to the ego, and something happens, and instead I leaned in harder.
You double down.
I doubled down and I started showing up. And I will tell you, this year, June of this year, and that's, I headed, well into my third year of sobriety, that was the turning point for me. And it was solely because of the women I met in that program, that I too was going through the same. And it showed me, more importantly, I did have growth,
Right.
even though I thought whatever was sitting right in
That's
front of
awesome.
me.
Yeah.
So that's how the program works. So. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Good stuff today,
Mikey,
man.
you still, I don't care how many times you bring this up, you're still not allowed to go to women's meetings.
Come
you
on,
don't
man.
need to do that level of research.
Oh, the women seek him out.
No, yeah. Right in, yeah, right.
Mikey's always had a warm smile,
Yeah.
and definitely,
Yeah, well, I've got a lot to smile about.
yeah.
Hey, will you-
Smiley man.
Great way to
Will
put
you
it.
come back?
Oh, I'd
Because we
love
got
to.
more to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome,
Thank you
man.
so much for having me, guys.
Thanks.
You got it.
See you,
Thanks,
Glenn.
Claudia.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.